Have you taken a look at the maps?
I would argue that Ohioans have recognized for some time that this is needed. The fact is that the current system is a winner-take-all proposition. And I believe that it's important that the process that we put in place now for 2021 be a more consensus-based process, and that's what I'm hearing from a lot of our neighbors. Some people have asked me, is this specifically because of one thing or another? And I told them that this has really nothing to do with 2011, or for that matter, 2001 or 1991. This has everything to do with 2021. This is looking forward. This is recognizing that we've got a suboptimal process in place, although I believe in recent years the process was carried out, I believe, in a legal and constitutional way. It's a suboptimal process, and so it naturally produces a suboptimal product, and we want to move forward with something that's much more consensus-based and balanced.
Are you hoping to get something on the ballot for November, or is that
That's the hope. It would need to be legislatively referred. It requires 3/5 majorities in both chambers. It'd be 60 votes in the House and 20 votes in the Ohio Senate.
Do you think that there's time, given that both the Speaker and the Senate President seem intent on having this go through both the Redistricting Task Force and the Constitutional Commission on Modernization, or whatever that is?
It could very well be impacted by the decision that was just handed down by the Supreme Court on half of this issue, which is the redistricting part as opposed to the reapportionment as opposed to redistricting. And while it was not to affect 2012, it still could affect future elections. And if there is some decision that would say those districts can't proceed, clearly there would be a need to have this in place. So that possibility is still out there. The reality is people want this to happen. People are totally frustrated with the process, and they look at the way this has been done, and they say, come on, what's going on with you? I'll get it right.
To that point, you say people want this to happen. Some of the people that I've talked to that want change say the problem is you guys. Not you guys necessarily at this table, but you guys in this building. That politicians are inherently self-interested, and they'll draw safe districts that are essentially, incumbent districts. What would you say to that criticism?
We have attempted to build into this process incentives away from safe districts. And while no system is ever perfect, this really provides an incentive to avoid the kinds of districts that we've seen produced in recent decades. I would argue that I'm as good a poster child for bad redistricting as anybody in the Ohio General Assembly in the last couple of go-rounds. And we can clearly improve this process. But the truth of the matter is we live in a democracy, and we elect people to do this kind of work. So pretending that you're going to take politics totally out of redistricting, I think is unrealistic and not a goal that we shared. We recognize that this is an inherently political process, but to make it straightforward, transparent, understandable, and workable was largely our goal, not to try to pretend that in some way it was not going to be political.
And ultimately, the people have to decide, because this will be taken to a vote of the people in order to change it, and it will be our job to present it in that fashion so that it's clear that what Senator Sawyer pointed out is indeed the case.
The idea that here, when the four of us started talking about this last year, the first thing we did was sort of sit down and put all the chips on the table, if you will, and what we were happy to find is that the four of us were legitimately interested in changing the process, not angling for partisan advantage one way or another, and that the four of us wanted to find a better way to do this. And in so discussing the alternative proposals out there, we all came to the agreement that there's no such thing, and some groups have tried to propose a process that involves a non nonpartisan panel of citizens, the four of us just don't believe that such a thing exists. And quite honestly, that it's folly to try to find some group of perfect angels to preside over a political process like this and think that those people are not going to have some sort of partisan influence. In fact, if it does anything, it does more harm to transparency by masking motivations and hiding where someone's actual opinions and motivations are in this process.
That's exactly right. And I would say, to that counterpoint against the idea of bipartisanship, they say bipartisanship will lead to deal making between the two parties. I think that's counterintuitive to the fundamental motivation of the minority party at all times, which is to become the majority party so that they can implement the policies that they believe in. So the idea that, the parties are going to get together and the minority party is going to say, all right, let's make a deal, I'll only take 40% of the seats. It doesn't, what good would that do for the minority party? It really wouldn't do any good at all. So I think when you require bipartisanship, as our proposal does, you're going to see competitiveness come out of that.
There's this notion in recent years that somehow compromise is a dirty word. We've been calling it consensus, but you could call it compromise. When Democrats and Republicans work together to find those solutions that are in the best interest of the people, ultimately that means that there is compromise going on. And that's not a bad thing. That's the art of being a statesman or a stateswoman. And that's what this process calls upon our majority and minority parties to do through the redistricting process, is to be statesmen and women, to meet in the middle and to find a negotiated compromise solution, a consensus solution, and we've provided what we think is a pretty arduous disincentive for them to not do so.
What are the disincentives in this bill to keep people from some sort of convention?
Well, the first is that obviously the two political parties are probably deathly afraid of letting the electorate choose between the maps. One of the principles of last best offer is that you have to negotiate to the middle and offer something that the general public is going to support. If you don't, and you come out with an extreme map that's especially favorable to one side or the other, and the other side comes out with a map that's more reasonable and more centrist and more appealing to a broader swath of Ohioans, then they're likely to get adopted. So it's in your strategic interest to do something that appeals to as many Ohioans as possible without regard to political party. The second thing is that it triggers the nonpartisan primary for 10 years. And that's something that political parties cannot like. They will not like that. It reduces their influence. Arguably, it will have a moderating influence on the types of people that will be elected. Other states have done this, and in fact, Ohio already has experience with it. It's not that novel of an idea. We do it in municipal elections. Some municipal elections in Ohio currently have nonpartisan primaries.
This be state, Senate, and Congress.
Correct.
They would become nonpartisan if it goes to, what triggers that? If it goes to the ballot?
If the two parties fail to agree on a map by a date certain, it goes to impasse resolution. An impasse resolution is last best offers of each map, a third citizen map picked by a panel. One Republican, one Democrat picks a third person. They pick the citizen map. Those three maps go to the general electorate voters. They pick the one by whichever one gets the most number of votes. That becomes the adopted map, and it also triggers, because they went to impasse at all, it triggers a nonpartisan primary for 10 years until the next decennial census.
To be clear, that nonpartisan primary process means that the strongest two candidates move forward regardless of party affiliation. What that means is in a strong Democratic district, you could have two Democratic candidates facing at the general election. In a strong Republican district, you could have two Republicans facing each other in the general election. But again, it's something that historically the two majority or two organized political parties do not like. It takes a degree of their power away from the process. But again, we propose this simply as a disincentive, that sort of Damocles, if you will, to cause the majority and minority to want to be statesmen and stateswomen about this and to work together to find that consensus.
It's important to understand that we don't propose this because we like it. We propose it because we know so many other people would not like it. So it is one of those disincentives that you were asking about. It would be something to be avoided at very high cost.
Does it spell out what date the impasse would go?
Yes.
Yeah, and we did it as upon two sort of fixed points in time that are both out of our control. One is the general election, that is set and needs to be set, needs to be predictable. The other is the release of the census numbers. We have no control over when that's going to happen. So the release of the census numbers triggers the beginning of this process, and then if you count back from the general election, that triggers the end of this process. And so where there's the flex in the middle is how much time the Redistricting Commission is going to have to deliberate and do their work. But it's all set so that, and we have reviewed this with the Secretary of State's office and continue to look at unintended consequences and what have you, but it's all set so that there is no confusion. There is no question about when the process moves forward. It's a fixed date and time.
Will the three maps show up then on the, like say this was in place for this one, will the three maps show up on the 2011 ballot, the 2012 ballot, which would show up, and what would you do in the meantime for?
Again, we're talking about 2021 process.
Right, I understand, that's an example.
It would show up, so it would be the 2021 general election. If the parties could not reach consensus throughout the spring and summer, then they would submit their last final offers. The three panelists would pick the citizen map, and then before the voters in the November 2021 general election, there would be a simple choice of map A, map B, map C. Editorial boards would have the chance to endorse maps. People would have the chance to go out and campaign for one map or another, as with any electoral process. And then the voters would make that swift and sure decision no later than election.